your fate is about to change. In fact, all of our fates are about to change because the karmic lunar nodes are changing signs. That's right, the North Node is shifting into Aquarius, the South Node is shifting into Leo, and these two influences have a massive impact on our destiny, our fate, on our soul's evolution and growth, and they're tied to major periods of upheaval and transition. Not only that, but this is the first time in roughly 18.6 years that we've seen the North Node in Aquarius and the South Node in Leo. And this time around, the transit of the North and South nodes through these fixed signs is going to feel very different than it did the last time we experienced it. Now, why is that? Because this 18-month transit begins with the pairing of the karmic instinctual energy of the South Node with the expansive, grandiose energy of Jupiter transiting the sign of Leo. And it ends with an even more intense pairing of the insatiable, obsessive North Node with Pluto, the planet of intensity, in the sign of Aquarius. And while Jupiter in Leo wants to make us the center of attention and help us to shine more brightly in a particular area of our lives, the influence of the South Node coming into the mix will be humbling, to say the least. Not only that, but the North Node's insatiable, obsessive urge to charge us forward into Aquarian themes. Themes like major innovation, scientific thinking, revolution, and social change will become more intense, more dogmatic, and downright bizarre in its manifestation toward the end of this transit of the nodes. In this video, I'm going to cover everything you need to know to navigate the next 18 months with the North Node transiting the sign of Aquarius and the South Node transiting Leo, including a forecast for all 12 signs. That's right, we're going to cover your sun, moon, and rising sign later on in this video, so make sure you stick around for that. And if you're new here, hello, welcome. My name is Heather Eland. I'm a professional astrologer and educator, and I'm the founder of the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, where I've taught thousands of students to give meaningful, accurate astrology readings and make predictions with confidence. And whether you're here because you're a student of astrology and you're learning to give readings, or you're simply here because you want to understand how the astrology of the moment and in the future will be impacting you more personally, I have something here on this channel for everyone, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an important astrology update. I upload a new forecast or astrology tutorial typically every single Saturday around 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, and so you don't want to miss that. So as always, we're going to start with a more general overview of what the lunar nodes actually represent in astrology, what they're going to be doing as they're transiting the signs of Leo and Aquarius, and how this is going to impact us both collectively and individually as sort of a precursor to what we're going to be diving into more specifically in the all signs forecast. So this section of the video is very important for giving context to what we're going to be describing and what you're going to be experiencing when we get into the forecast for all 12 signs, so make sure you don't skip over this part. So if you're watching this video at the time of its release, you may or may not know that the true node version of the lunar nodes, that calculation of the lunar nodes, has already shifted its axis, and so the North Node is already in the sign of Aquarius, and the South Node using these calculations is already in the sign of Leo. Now, this transit began on July 26th of 2026, and it's going to last all the way through until March 26th of 2028. That said, there are two different ways of calculating the lunar nodes. There's the true node version, which is more accurate to the actual wobble of the moon, and it's just very precise in its calculation, especially when you're looking at things like eclipses, which is what the lunar nodes are actually designed to do. They're not bodies in space, they're actually astronomical calculations that show where the sun and moon will cross paths in a way that will create a solar or lunar eclipse. And so the true node is a more recent development now that we have the ability through modern science and technology to be so precise in this calculation. The mean node, on the other hand, is the average motion of the North and South nodes every single day, and that has a lot more historical use. It's been used throughout history by astrologers way before we had the ability to do those more precise mathematical calculations. And so the mean node has a lot of energy behind it just for that reason. And as an astrologer who's been doing this for 14 years or so, I've played with both the true node and the mean node, and you guys might already be aware that I'm leaning more toward the mean node these days, although I look at both. And so that lengthy explanation out of the way, the true node is already in the sign of Aquarius right now. The mean node will be moving into the sign of Aquarius on August 18th of 2026, and it will actually leave a little bit earlier than the true node. And so it'll actually leave Aquarius and enter Capricorn on March 7th of 2028. And so as we go through this video, I want you to think of these periods and timelines that I'm talking about with not just the overall transit of the nodes, but also the aspects that the lunar nodes will be making with both Jupiter and Pluto as not just a one and done situation. It's more like a window, because these are not actual bodies in space. There's not a hard line in the sand drawn, and there are arguments to be made for both of these calculations. And so the window right now for this massive shift, this period where we're in between spaces, where we're in between a shift or a change in our destiny, is going to last from July 26th through August 18th, because that's when both nodes will fully be shifting into the signs of Aquarius and Leo. So what are the lunar nodes and how do they tie in with our destiny, our fate, our karma, these major transitionary periods in our lives? Well, the lunar nodes, as I mentioned before, are calculations for the eclipse points. And the oldest form of astrology that we know of was based around making larger scale predictions utilizing the eclipses, because the ancients knew and saw that when the eclipses happened and they were visible in a certain area, that things would go a little wild. There would be a tendency within a certain period of time for upheaval to occur, for big changes to happen with rulers, with kings, with queens, with societies as a whole. And so these eclipses and these calculation points for the eclipses, the north and south nodes, have a big historical precedent for being tied and connected to, through observation, these major pivotal moments in our lives and in our society. And so, because the lunar nodes are so intimately tied in with the eclipses, because they are the eclipse calculation points, they are tied in with that energy of karma, of fate, of transition, of upheaval, of moving in a new direction. And in our personal lives, this shows us where our soul is evolving, where our soul is growing, where something synchronistic, something outside of us, something we don't have control over, that's woven into our life story, predetermined before we even come in, is taking place and taking hold of us. And these transits of the lunar nodes show a new area of life where that is going to be a central focus for our soul's growth, for our evolution, for our destiny, and the changes that are going to be coming up for this entire 18-month period. And so this is a huge thing with the lunar nodes changing signs, because even though it happens once every 18 months, when it does, our focus shifts, our growth pattern shifts, our lives have to go through some sort of surrender and loss and letting go and new beginnings and change, where there's a major beginning and ending, where things looked one way and then suddenly, over a relatively short span of time, they look a completely different way. And so these moments are some of the biggest ones that we experience astrologically. These are some of the biggest predictors of massive upheaval and change in our lives astrologically, along with the eclipses, which are massive activations of the lunar nodes. Speaking of which, if you're watching this video when it first comes out, my Karmic Power of Eclipses workshop is 50% off through the eclipse season through August 30th. It's going to walk you through how to understand the eclipses, how to understand relative eclipse strength and activation periods beyond just the eclipse moments, how to know when the eclipse event that's promised is going to actually manifest fully in your life, how to understand eclipses in the birth chart, your pre and postnatal eclipse, and so much more. Again, this resource is on sale 50% off, link down in the description below. And if you dive into the Karmic Power of Eclipses, you're going to get a very deep understanding of how eclipses work, not just for this transit of the lunar nodes through Leo and Aquarius, but for all of the eclipses you're going to be experiencing, which happen once every 6 months for your entire life. So it's a very valuable resource to have on hand. And we will, of course, be talking about the eclipses that will be coming up around the North Node in Aquarius and the South Node in Leo. I already talked about it quite a bit in my August forecast, because we are entering into eclipse season right out the gate with the nodes changing signs. Doesn't always happen that way, but it's happening that way this time. And so we are in for a big karmic reset with this one, but we're going to be having a lot of different eclipses. And so we'll cover a little bit about what that looks like in this video. And of course, I always post forecasts for each individual eclipse as they're happening in the moment, and so keep an eye out for that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, so circling back to the North and South Node energy, because this is really important. That's what this entire video is about. The North Node in Vedic astrology is known as Rahu, the dragon's head. It represents this area where we feel like we are choosing something. We feel like there is a conscious decision being made. We feel like we have this insatiable excitement, urge, desire to move forward with something, to try something new. The North Node represents this need to do something in a way that's never been done before, either by us or by the collective. It represents this need for growth. It represents this need to experience life in a different way. It represents what our soul is moving into that it's never experienced previously. And so this is a new development, a new thing, and it feels exciting, but it feels scary because it is something that we've not tried before and that we don't have experience with. It also represents, in the birth chart especially, an area of life where we might stumble and make a lot of mistakes, especially early on when we're first figuring things out in the first half of our life. In our 40s, the nodes mature and we start to maintain a better balance and understand how to work with the North Node energy more effectively. But until then, we're kind of diving all in. And when the North Node first moves into a different sign by transit, it's kind of like that. It's like we're diving all in. We haven't done this yet. And at the onset of the transit is where we'll make a lot of mistakes. At the end of the transit, it's where the energy becomes just so hyper fixated and focused. And we feel like we must do this thing. And throughout the entire transit of the North Node, we're going to be feeling like we are compelled to do something, even though on the surface, it seems like we have a choice. We don't have a choice. We know deep down in our gut that this is something that we are being led to do, called to do, that we have to do. And both of the nodes are plagued by so many signs, synchronicities, messages, coincidences, odd, bizarre experiences that kind of turn our life and change our course in ways that we never could have predicted or expected, especially with the North Node energy. Now, the South Node is known as Ketu in Vedic astrology. It's the dragon's tail without the head. And I feel like this symbolism is really wonderful because with the North Node Rahu, we have this like logic and this way of rationalizing what we're doing and this ambition and this drive, but we have no prior experience and therefore we have no instincts to help guide us through what it is we're moving into. We also don't have the intuition, we don't have the heart, we don't have the entire body, right? It's just the head. And so with the South Node, it's the opposite of that. We are running purely on instinct. Rationally, logically, it feels like we don't have control over what's going on. We don't know exactly what's going on. We're kind of like going in blind and having to follow our gut, having to follow our instincts, having to rely on intuition, but also the universe has our back when it comes to the South Node. This is where we get a lot of synchronicity, a lot of sensations of comfort, familiarity, of like, this is something that's supposed to be happening right now. It's where these talents that are latent that we didn't consciously develop show up, and we are able to use them in a way that helps us give back to others. The South Node is not about ambition and desire and doing things materially just for the sake of it. It's about doing something because it feels right and because it's part of our path, because it's some sort of karma that we have to carry out or play out or resolve in this lifetime. It's about doing something because there's a greater need for it, even if we don't fully understand it. It's about giving it up to God, the universe, to guide us and to trust that this is the right path, this is the right thing, and what we're sharing is the right thing to be sharing in this moment. It's also a place of unraveling and weakening, and in physical manifestation, it represents loss and letting go. It represents a need to surrender and move on from something that feels comfortable, that feels familiar, that feels sometimes like a hug, until it feels like a cage and a repeating cycle and a pattern that we just can't get out of or escape over and over and over again. That's when it's time, that's when the lessons are wrapping up, and that's when we know that the South Node energy is asking us to clear out this karma and move on, go in a different direction, or to utilize that energy for something different. And so the South Node area can feel kind of soupy and nebulous and confusing. and it's where we need to rely on something other than logic to guide us through. All right, so now that we have a good understanding of the North and South Node, we're going to get into this particular transit of the North Node in Aquarius and the South Node of Leo, because this is a different one than what we're used to. We have two major outer planet transits that are converging with the North and South Node during its 18-month run through the signs of Leo and Aquarius. And before we dive in even further, make sure you download our free Astrology 101 quick reference guide at the link in the description below. This will help you to pick apart your chart to understand all of your placements and to learn even more deeply which planets, which houses, which calculations, which angles in your chart are going to be impacted by this transit of the lunar nodes much more deeply. So you're going to get a lot more out of this forecast if you go through and download that workbook and quick reference guide first. And once you've done that, make sure you comment below and let me know where the North and South nodes are going to be hitting your chart the most. Are they hitting any of your particular planets that are in Aquarius or Leo? Are they hitting your angles, the ascendant, descendant, midheaven, IC? Are you having a lunar node return or reversal? Because that's a big thing too, a big karmic upheaval and a turning point in your life, which I talked about in a different video that you can watch after this, by the way, if that is applicable to you. But I want to know what you're going through down below. And so as I mentioned before, the lunar nodes, if you're calculating based on the true node, will be transiting the signs of Aquarius and Leo from July 26th of 2026 through March 26th of 2028. If you're using the mean node, it's going to be August 18th of 2026 through March 7th of 2028. And so the last time we actually had the North and South nodes in the signs of Aquarius and Leo in this way was December 17th of 2007 until August 21st of 2009. And that is the true node calculation. And so thinking back to roughly that period of time, because like, as I mentioned before, it is more of a window of time when the transition between the different signs with the lunar nodes occurs. And so thinking back to that time frame, what were you experiencing during that time? What big changes, what big turning points, what big messages were coming through? Was there a big upheaval that turned your life upside down? Did you move in a new direction? Did you align yourself more clearly with something that felt like your destiny that's still a part of your life right now? Let me know in the comment section below, because this is a really great thing to reflect on, because those themes, those energies are going to be coming back around in a different way this time, definitely different. And it's also the next phase of a cycle that builds upon itself over the course of many, many, many years and decades, but it is going to carry a similar feel, a similar theme, and you might actually have very synchronistically old opportunities or old experiences from that time frame, people from that time frame that will come back into your life, and it's going to feel fated. It's going to feel important. It's going to feel like this is something that you are meant to connect with. The other time period that I really want you to look at is from May 9th of 2017 until November 6th of 2018. This is when we had the reversal of what we're experiencing right now. So we had the North Node transiting the sign of Leo and the South Node in Aquarius. This is important because similar themes are going to come up again that occurred around that time, but it's going to be like literally the opposite. Like everything gets turned upside down. It doesn't mean necessarily that everything good that happened during that period gets reversed. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything bad that happened during that period is going to be reversed. What it means is that this is a coming back into balance. Something happened where you were pulled very intensely in a certain specific direction, the direction of the North Node, where you became obsessed, where you became very motivated, where you became insatiable in your urge to make a certain change, or life came in and pulled you in this new direction. And now you're coming back into balance, you're coming back down to earth, you're regulating across this axis of Aquarius and Leo, which we'll talk about when we get into the forecast of all 12 signs, how this is going to be impacting you more personally. So what does it mean to have the South Node transiting the sign of Leo and the North Node transiting Aquarius? Let's start with the South Node first, because this is an energy that we are unraveling, letting go of, moving away from, but it's also an energy that we are embracing in a way that is not necessarily for our own good, but for the greater good. So the South Node is all about where we're coming from. It's about looking to the past in order to see what we need to release and let go of, but also what we need to bring into the future. Leo is all about the self. It's very much about our soul's expression of purpose and physical reality because Leo is ruled by the sun. It's also a fixed sign, and the fixed signs don't necessarily love change, but for different reasons. The sign of Leo is very nostalgic. It likes to think back to its glory days. It likes to think back when things were the best and it was getting the best recognition and everything was good for the individual, for that person, when they were really feeling like they were successful and achieving their goals and being recognized for their gifts. And you'll recognize that nostalgia in the people that have really strong Leo energy in their lives. They yearn for a time when things were better, and they like to maintain a certain sense of those days, the good old days, whether it's through storytelling or connections that they keep in their lives, objects, environments, looks, You'll see a lot of Leo men, I've noticed, who used to have glorious hair. Leo men tend to go bald, but they tend to keep whatever hair they have left the same way that they had it back in those glory days, right? And so that's just kind of a silly surface level example, but it shows how Leo likes to hold on to, at least symbolically or in some way, the things that made it feel fulfilled, the things that gave it recognition back during this specific time frame. And so I would say, because the South Node is an energy of looking to the past, that this is going to be a very nostalgic time. Collectively, in the media, we're going to have a lot of nostalgia for the good old days, especially the days before technology, because the North Node transiting Aquarius having everything to do with technology and AI and all of the things that we are experiencing as a collective in these new developments for humanity right now, we are going to be really craving the way things were, simplicity. We're going to be craving the good old days. We're going to be craving when we were able to get recognition for expressing ourselves creatively in a way that was very authentic and very human. And so I think that that's actually going to be a really positive expression of the South Node in Leo on a collective level. This is also an unraveling, though. If you are looking for recognition for the sake of recognition, if you are wanting to be seen just to get attention, not for something that you're doing that's beneficial or good or positive or contributing in some way, the South Node in Leo is going to give you a very humbling experience. And it's sort of at odds with this energy of Jupiter in the sign of Leo. I talked about this a lot in my Jupiter in Leo forecast, which I did do, and there's an all signs forecast in that as well. So definitely watch that after this, because this is a huge component of what's going on here, and you really can't pull them apart. But it's kind of like Jupiter wants to expand on something. It wants to give you opportunities to be seen and recognized and to share your gifts with the world, but it doesn't want you to do it for the wrong reasons. There's a spirituality that is imbued in this energy because of the South Node and Jupiter. Jupiter is all about wisdom. It's about acquiring wisdom. It's about belief. It's about your connection to something bigger than you. It's about a sense of perspective, and it's about how you and your talents impact the world at large, impact humanity, help other people, because the other side of this axis is Aquarius, which is very humanitarian. It's very focused on the collective and the collective good. And so the South Node energy is calling for us to let go of anything that's egoic, that is just what we're craving for the sake of getting attention when we're doing it for the wrong reasons. So I would say that this is going to be a little bit challenging for like influencers and people who are out there just being flashy for the sake of showing it off. I would say that this could be the death of the influencer during this time period for sure. And this is more about getting in touch with something real and authentic and becoming a leader by example, by living a good life and sharing your talents and gifts with the world generously in a way that is authentic. That's really what this is all about. If you're not doing that, if you're doing it for selfish reasons, South Node's going to come for you. This is also just in general, you having to let go of the good old days, you having to let go of an idea of the way things were and how you wish it was the same, how you wish it could still be that way, how you wish it could stay that way forever. That's going to be a hard one and a hard lesson for the South Node in Leo for a lot of people. Now with the North Node moving into Aquarius, this is where we're going to see a doubling down on the technological age, the technocratic age, because this is an energy of growth and this insatiable urge to dive into something new, paired with Pluto, which is already an obsessive energy, which is already a compulsive energy, which is already an energy that's laser focused on creating something in this realm of technology. It's very tied with this age of AI. It's very tied with, the bigger implications of how this is impacting society. It's already tied with these obsessions, these addictions to technology. And the North Node, I don't think is necessarily helping that. What I do think it's helping is it's helping us to look at how our impact and our influence, which is that South Node energy, is connected to the greater good, is connected to all of humanity. One of the themes of Aquarius is what's good for the group is what's good for me. Like what's good for me is what's good for the group and vice versa. Like it's not separate, right? And it's about looking at what's best for society as a whole, what's best for everyone, not just what's best for the individual. And I do think that that could be a positive energy with the North Node in the sign of Aquarius. I do think there's going to be a lot of energy around collectivism. I would say that there's going to be some very strange, interesting new innovations and ideas that come out that are going to be so bizarre that we never could have fathomed any of this prior to the North Node moving into the sign of Aquarius, because that's just a thing that will happen during this time. This is also a time where a lot of people are going to be leading from the head and not the heart, between the signification of Rahu, the dragon's head without the tail, being in an air sign of Aquarius, which is very heady, very logical, very scientific. And so I think there's an over-rationalization that could be occurring during this time in a certain area of your life, and that could cause you to go a little off kilter. It's kind of like we need to embrace the rational side, the scientific side. We need to embrace the information side of things, but we also cannot ignore our instincts and the lessons that we've learned through our past experience along the way. And now, while Aquarius is seen as being sort of free thinking in the astrological world, it's not as free thinking as you might think it is. So it's a fixed air sign, which means that it's very fixed in its very strange and unusual ideas about the world. It typically has a very different worldview. It typically has an innovative worldview. It thinks outside the box. But once an Aquarian gets latched onto an idea and they logically think it's correct, it's very hard to pry them away from that. They have to come to their own conclusions separately, independently, in order to change course. And so we're going to see, I think, a doubling down on certain dogmatic, rigid viewpoints involving science, technology. I've been saying for a long time now, like, science is the new religion. I think there's going to be an energy around that. And the North Node being in Aquarius just makes me think a lot of space exploration, because Aquarius is connected to the stars. It is connected to outer space. It makes me think about scientific innovation in that realm, but it also makes me think about what's going on right now with like UFO disclosure and all of these other things, and how there could be some interesting new developments in those areas as well. So now let's get into the dates and major events that you need to be looking out for this transit of the lunar nodes through Aquarius and Leo. And so first and foremost, right out the gate, we have the North Node being paired with Jupiter in a sign-based conjunction in the sign of Leo, which we've already talked a little bit about what that means. And that's going to come exact for the very first time on November 11th of 2026. And this is an ongoing energy that's going to come to pass 3 different times. So the first time this happens, which is in November, I think is the most interesting because it's also in a conjunction with Mars. So we have Jupiter, the South Node, and Mars all in a conjunction together. It's not technically a stellium because the South Node is not a planet, but it is very impactful. Mars represents separation, divisiveness, anger, arguments, disputes, disagreements. It's also ambition. And this almost feels like, to me, a time where we feel like this really intense surge of ambition. We feel like we really want to do something really intensely. We want to do it really overkill, but the energy is just not there to do it, or there's some sort of difficulty or challenge challenge or friction that gets in our way. I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out in all of our lives, and especially in the collective around this time on November 11th when this comes exact. You know, anytime you have Mars paired with Jupiter in the birth chart or by transit, it tends to be an overreaction to something. And so there is going to be something potentially that we have to let go of, release, separate ourselves from, which again is another Mars theme. Mars is the planet of separation, of cutting ties. And the South Node is about letting go. And I think we're going to be overkill about it, or we're going to be overreacting to the situation at hand. Like, this is not as big of a deal. It's not as dramatic as we feel like it needs to be, or as we feel like it is. And so for that first pass, the South Node, based on the true node and mean node calculation, are going to be pretty much lined up. So you're going to be having the conjunction between Jupiter and the South Node happening around November 11th. The second time around, which is going to be February 22nd for the true node, will actually be occurring on March 1st for the mean node. And so we have a bigger window of time where this energy is going to be very active and very prevalent. And this second transit of Jupiter conjunct the South Node is happening around 19 degrees in the sign of Leo. It's still in a conjunction with Mars though. Mars has not moved on completely because of the Mars retrograde. And so the Mars retrograde is really going to be highly connected to this Jupiter South Node energy. And this is going to be a very interesting one to talk about when we get into it, when we get into 2027 and all of that. But I will say that the first pass is this like overblown, dramatic, like letting go of something potentially, or moving into something, but it's like something tied to our past. This second pass is having to revisit that in some way, or redo it, or come back to it. It's going to be an interesting one. There's still a Mars energy, but it's not as tight. So I will say that. And in this case, there's going to be an opposition between Jupiter and Mercury occurring at the time of the Jupiter South Node conjunction. This is more about big plans and big ideas, and this is more about messages coming through synchronistically through the signs, through our dreams, through meditation, through our connections with other people in a way that's very coincidental, that can't be coincidence, that feels really important and familiar. That's about those types of things coming through and creating opportunities for us that are very fated and connected to our destiny. Now, the third and final pass of this transit is happening on April 23rd, 2027 for the true node calculation of the South Node, and on April 19th of 2027 for the mean node calculation of the South Node. And this final pass of Jupiter with the South Node again is with Mars. Not quite as tight as that first time around, but still there. We have Mars at 22 degrees, we have Jupiter at 17 degrees with the lunar nodes at 17 degrees. And this one is going to be kind of like the grand finale. So there's something that we're having to deal with karmically 3 different times, and it's almost like there's this intensity, there's this friction, there's this overblown energy where it feels really dramatic. I think each time it's going to feel less and less dramatic, and we're going to come closer to a resolution. It's also as if we have to cut ties with something, or sever something, or move away from something, or I think it's both. I think it's like we're jumping into something new, and maybe it's overblown and overdoing it, and we have to go back a couple times and humble ourselves a little bit. But it's also that there's something we need to cut ties with, and it might take like 3 different times to finally let go. And then finally we come to the last major event that's going to be happening with the lunar node transit through Aquarius and Leo, which is when the North Node in Aquarius comes into an exact conjunction with Pluto. Pluto is the planet of intensity. It's the planet of obsession. It's the planet of extremes. It brings things that are emotionally sometimes very turbulent, and it also has this obsessive, really intense, laser-focused quality. And on November 15th of 2027, the true node is going to come into a conjunction with Pluto. And on November 30th, that's when the mean node comes into a conjunction with Pluto. And so that's your window of influence and experience. And I really think this one is going to be very intense. This is an energy where fate and karma really take the reins. There's a heaviness to this energy for sure. There's an intensity and a depth to it. This is also, I think, a doubling down on something collectively involving technology or AI or the technocratic state of some kind. I think this is in our personal lives, a doubling down in a laser focus where we're all going to become obsessed with moving forward with something where fate is going to step in and the pull, the desire that we feel is going to be completely undeniable. Like, we're not going to be able to avoid it. We're going to have to do the thing that we're feeling compelled to do. And that's going to be a big moment, I would say, for a lot of people, but especially if you have your sun, moon, or rising at the early degrees of any of the fixed signs, but especially Aquarius. And so the fixed signs are Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio. And so if you have anything really around 5 degrees, so like 0 to 10 degrees in those signs, this Pluto energy, this Pluto conjunction to the North Node is going to bring a very intense change in circumstance, a very intense move in a different direction. Pluto works in extremes, and so this could be an extreme shift in your destiny, an extreme shift in your fate. And emotionally, I think it's going to be very intense for a lot of people, but I do think it's going to be very transformative. And when Pluto is in the mix, it's all about getting in touch with what we truly and deeply desire at a core level and purging anything that's not that. And so this is going to be an important time to pay attention to the signs, the synchronicities, to go deeper. Pay attention to those desires, those core urges, the energy that feels like you need to be doing something, the thing that you're feeling obsessive over, that's the thing that you need to actually jump on and move into. So moving on to the eclipses. During this period, over the next 18 months, we're going to have 9 different eclipses. And out of those 9, 2 of them are going to be total solar eclipses. 2 more are going to be annular solar eclipses, but we're actually not going to have any of those blood moon lunar eclipses that turn the moon red. And those are very important and potent as well. And so the most potent energies that we're going to be experiencing are the total solar eclipses, which are going to be happening on August 12th of 2026. So really right out the gate with the lunar nodes changing signs. And then the total solar eclipse we'll be experiencing the following year in August, on August 2nd of 2027. Now, every time an eclipse comes through and activates the lunar nodes, this is a time where fate takes the reins. This is the time where things start to get extra strange and extra synchronistic. This is the time where those big upheavals can at least be seeded or started, if not the full transition. So what you'll see around the time of an eclipse is not necessarily that, oh, the eclipse happens and then all the things happen. The eclipse happens and your whole life is turned upside down all at once. Sometimes that can be the case, and often it is when the eclipse is hitting your birth chart really directly and really hard. And on top of that, there are multiple eclipse activations occurring around the time of the eclipse itself. Then things can speed up and happen very quickly, especially under like a total solar eclipse, an annular solar eclipse, or a total lunar eclipse. However, other times you might find that the eclipse happens and there's a seed of something, or there's an energy around it, and something is initiated or something is happening and you can feel it, you can sense it. You might even have the beginning stages of something occur, but the full manifestation of the event doesn't happen until several days, several weeks, or even several months later. Now, this is because the eclipse points are being activated in different ways throughout the year, and sometimes the eclipse is not the whole story. Often it's not the whole story. It's just the initial energetic imprint. And when that activation occurs later on down the line, that's when the thing's going to happen. And so I teach you how to figure out these karmic activation points for each of the eclipses in the Karmic Power of Eclipses workshop, which again is on sale right now for 50% off down at the link in the description below. And if you've ever experienced an eclipse energy where you thought something was going to happen and it was really big and it's hitting your chart really directly, but the actual event didn't manifest until later, comment below and let me know. Because that's a very common occurrence and it confuses a lot of people, and most astrologers miss this actual way of predicting and calculating those eclipse events. Finally, the last thing I'll say about the eclipses before moving on to the all signs forecast is that during this Leo Aquarius axis, we're actually going to have 3 different eclipses that will be visible in Spain in particular. So that is the country to watch out for, with big events, big changes occurring over the next 18 months and maybe even beyond that when there are additional activations. And as always, with each of these 9 eclipses, I'm going to be covering them for you more more generally in my monthly forecasts as they come up, but also in individual, more in-depth forecasts for all 12 signs. So again, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on that, because these are some big ones this time around. So let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs. But before we do, I just want to remind you to make sure that you listen to your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign to get a more holistic overview of the energy for the next 18 months ahead while the nodes are transiting Aquarius and Leo. Your rising sign will actually be the most predominant energy, your sun sign will be secondary, and your moon sign is important to listen to as well, although this energy will be more internalized and subjective. All right, and so for Aries and for Aries rising, the North Node is pulling you into a brand new fated direction when it comes to your closest social connections, when it comes to your friends and the people you surround yourself with by choice. You're going to find yourself in a new group, I would say, a new friend group, new social circles. You're going to be exploring new avenues when it comes to your social connections. This is where fated karmic synchronistic connections and social support can come in ways that are just very synchronistic and bizarre and feel really strange. This could also be big upheavals and changes occurring within your friend group or with your friends themselves, because the 11th house is not just you and your experience, it's those actual people in your life. And so this could represent a major transition or upheaval or a lot of transitionary energy going on amongst your friends and amongst your networks, amongst your social circle. If you're a business owner in particular, the 11th house is income or money or profits that come in through your business. And so this could be an increase. This could be a big increase, especially later on down the line. And so that's something to pay attention to as well. It's something that comes about in a way that's fated, synchronistic, and guided, where you feel this very intense creative urge to do something in a very specific way, where it seems like a choice, but you know deep down in your gut you have to do it this way. On the flip side, the South Node is transiting your 5th house, which is the house of fun, joy, hobbies, interests, sexuality. It's also the house of reproduction and children. And so the 5th house is a house where you go to play, you go to have fun, you go to experience joy, and there is a need to bring back a source of joy that you might have let go of in the past. This could also be a fated talent, gift, creative self-expression outlet that comes through or comes into your life in some way. It's going to be a little bit less right now about focusing on your passions and the things that you love, and it's more about focusing on what's good for the group and the interests of your friends and your social network. I would say that that's going to be something where you're going to need to try to find a balance between the two and maybe merge the two energies, find people who have the same hobbies, interests, and passions as you and connect with them in that way. There's definitely the potential for a synchronistic energy, a change, a major shift in your destiny or your fate involving your children. This is one where you'll see fated pregnancies, unexpected children coming into your life, or it could be that there's a change in the lives of your children, like a big, massive change where there's a huge transition coming up sometime in the next 18 months that's going to affect the lives of your children in a big way. Even if they're not living with you, even if they're all grown, it's kind of like their lives are shifting and they are letting go of something and they're moving away from something. So that's something to pay attention to as well. For Taurus and for Taurus rising, the North Node is transiting your 10th house, which is the house of career and public reputation. I would say that there's a lot of growth coming for you when it comes to your career and when it comes to your big career goals and plans. You're going to become obsessed with some sort of goal, some sort of impact that you want to make for the betterment of humanity or society. It's not necessarily a career-related goal. So if you are not somebody who's working, you don't have a business, you don't have a career, you're retired, or you're maybe a stay-at-home parent, this doesn't mean that nothing happens. It just means that you have an urge to make a bigger impact, or maybe you will be going back out into the workforce or doing something that's impacting the greater good in a bigger way, or that's impacting the collective in a bigger way. You're going to be making a mark. You're going to be making a name for yourself. Your legacy is changing as a result of the changes that you're making out in the world and what you're doing with your life, especially in your career during the time of this transit. The South Node is transiting your 4th house, which is the house of home, family, property, and real estate. This is a time where you're going to be letting go of something, either karmically or very physically, involving your family, your parents, your upbringing. There could be changes going on in the lives of your parents or your family. You might have to let go of a home that you are no longer able to maintain, or that is not a good foundation for your career goals. I see a lot of people moving when they have this type of transit. So changing location, or, buying a home, or they have like a new job opportunity that forces them to move, or they're moving in search of a new job opportunity, or maybe they start working from home. All of these things are applicable and a potential for you. I would say there's going to be the need to expand on something or take advantage of an opportunity involving your home, your property, your place of living, in order to grow and develop in the way that you are destined to when it comes to your career. For Gemini and for Gemini rising, Geminis are going to be having the North Node transiting your 9th house, which is the house of travel. It's the house of exploration. This is a time where fated karmic travel opportunities can come up for you, and that means that you are going to be going to places that feel like you are just so compelled to be there, or it comes about in a way that's fated and synchronistic. It comes about in a way that's strange, or you become obsessed with the idea of a specific location and you just have to go there. This is also where you might be really diving into new educational pursuits, new religious ideologies and belief systems that you become very dogmatic about and very obsessed with by the end of this transit, where at the beginning this wasn't even on your radar, and now by the end you know this is part of your path, you know this is part of the perspective that you need to carry through in this lifetime, the message you need to deliver to other people. This is where fated energy with teachers can come up, where you could have a fated connection with a teacher. There could also be difficult connections with teachers, gurus, religious figures that place themselves in a high position, or that you put on a pedestal or put in a position of authority over you in your life. Know that you are your own inner authority, that you know what's best for you. And just because somebody's coming through and saying that they are a conduit for like God or some sort of greater power, it doesn't override your intrinsic sense of what's right and what's wrong, because this is about your integrity. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there is the South Node transiting the 3rd house. And so this is, again, there's an energy here of education. You're learning something new, but you're letting go of kind of the nitty gritty of it and looking at it more big picture. You're letting go of how you feel about something and looking at it more intellectually. There's also potentially challenges coming up that could create new opportunities involving vehicles, your commute. I would say challenges or opportunities, or both. I think it's going to be challenging opportunities that come up involving your siblings. Your siblings could actually have major changes, major transitions, major upheavals, things that are coming up in their lives that are challenging in some way that you're helping to support them through. For Cancer and for Cancer rising, this transit of the lunar nodes through Aquarius and Leo will bring for you big changes when it comes to your financial situation. There could definitely be big new developments, not just for you, but for your partner. If you're somebody who's married or in a long-term relationship, there's definitely an energy here where your partner's resources could expand or change, or they could be obsessed with investing or growing money, and you could become obsessed with investing or growing your resources in some way. There's definitely going to be a change in your financial situation. It could be for the better, but you have to let go of this idea of the way that you want things to be. This is definitely not a time to overspend. If you are spending money just to get something flashy or gaudy, or to be seen in some way, to be recognized, to like obtain some sort of status symbol with a nice new vehicle or whatever it is, if you are using your money for like the wrong reasons in order to gain recognition through materialistic means, this energy is not going to work so well for you. But if you're desiring to acquire resources in order to utilize them to give back in some way, to do something that's very authentic and very heartfelt, to be generous with what is being presented to you by the universe during this time, then money can flow in a lot more easily. But there's definitely going to be some changes and instability, I would say, when it comes to your finances, where there could be some ups, there could be some downs. But ultimately, what I typically see with the North Node, especially transiting the 8th house, is that money's coming in, or you're learning how to create money through outside sources or through connections with other people. There's definitely the potential for money to come in through inheritance or insurance payouts, or like a tax refund, or something very fated and karmic that comes in that feels kind of scary in the moment, but later it has some sort of payout. For Leo and for Leo rising, this energy obviously is impacting you very much so because your rising sun or moon sign is going to be hit by the South Node. And so this is a time where a lot of really beautiful, powerful opportunities can come your way, but only if you're not looking to get recognition for recognition's sake. This is about being recognized recognized for your true talents, your true gifts, your true authenticity. This is about getting connected with something from your past that you need to bring into the future in order to create a life that's more aligned with your destiny, with what you came here to do. And your destiny, your fate, your timeline is about to change. This is one of these moments where there's a before and after. Life was one way and now it's another way. And a lot of those changes can be tied to you focusing more on the needs of a partner, a spouse, a significant other. It could be through a new relationship or the ending of an old one that's no longer serving you. This could be a massive change that ripples through all of your entire life, that stems through your connections with other people, that stems through an important relationship and big fated karmic synchronistic changes that come into the mix. New connections that come in right now, even if they're not romantic, are going to take on a fated importance. It's going to take on extra significance. And these energies might not be here for a lifetime, but they're definitely here for a reason to pull you in a new direction. All of your close connections right now are pulling you in a new direction. And if you are somebody who's partnered, this is a time where your spouse or significant other might be going through some massive changes of their own. Their life is changing and unfolding in a new way, and you are letting go of selfish needs and wanting to focus on you, and you are having to focus on their development and this new journey that you're taking on together. For Virgo and for Virgo rising, for you, the North Node is going to be transiting your 6th house and the South Node is going to be transiting your 12th. This is an interesting energy. There's definitely going to be some spiritual seeking and spiritual exploration. This is a great time to dive into new forms of meditation, visualization. This is a time to go on some sort of deep spiritual retreat, to do your inner work. This is also a time to pay attention to your dreams. Dream work is important. Understanding the messages that are coming through in your dreams is very important. There could be synchronistic, fated, karmic events that come through that involve your health or the health of other people around you. There could be a karmic connection or fated energies that show up around retreat centers, hospitals, rehabilitation centers, places where people go to be away from the world. This is also a time where you're going to be feeling very busy on a physical level. There's going to be a lot to do on a day-to-day basis. Your work is going to become busier. You might have fated karmic new connections that come in with coworkers or with employees. And even if you're not somebody who owns a business or is in a management position, this also includes fated synchronistic connections with people who you hire to do a service for you. The person that cuts your hair, the plumber that comes to fix that leaky pipe. All of these people are 6th house people, and you're going to be having some very strange, very interesting connections that come through that are meant to be. This is also where your work might be taking on a new direction. There could be some very karmic, very fated energies around your health where things could become a little turbulent, or you might need to move in a new direction, or you might have a fated opportunity for healing and regeneration, especially toward the end of this transit. There could also be some sort of shock involving your health or somebody else's health in your life. There's a lot of new energy coming in around animals for those who are interested in that, and for even if you're not interested in that, there might be, a fated pet that comes in or a new energy around animals. Like I would say a lot of you are going to be coming into contact with like a new pet or a new animal that comes into your life, and that takes on a very fated, very important purpose that helps put you on a certain path that you wouldn't otherwise be on. This is also you balancing your need for rest and for deep inner spiritual work and spiritual study and exploration with the need to be out in the world working and doing things. This is about forming and maintaining a balance between your outside life and your day-to-day grind and your inner world. For Libra and for Libra rising, this is an interesting one because the South Node is transiting your 11th house. I would say for you, old friendships are going to be coming back around. This is also where certain friendships that have been in your life for a really long time have reached their expiration date and you're going to be moving on. There are new people coming into your life, and those connections are likely to feel very familiar. They're going to feel kind of like a hug. It's going to feel like, oh, this is somebody who I feel like I already know, even though I just met them. Like there's something that just feels right about this. There's something that feels familiar. And that's because when the South Node transits your 11th house, friendships that come in are typically, considered like past life connections, people that you already have some sort of tie to that is unexplainable in this physical 3D reality. There's also the energy here of the North Node transiting your 5th house, which brings new developments and this insatiable need to connect with your passions, to connect with the things that you love, to connect with the things that bring you joy. This is about fun. This is about joy. This is about doing the things that you love and embracing it fully. And you're going to have new hobbies, new interests, new passion pursuits that come into your life that are also very, I would say, heady, logical. Like there's something here that's technological about it even, or maybe even humanitarian in nature. It's kind of an interesting thing. I would be interested to see what happens with some people, maybe even starting a business involving like AI or technology or something like that, because you've just become so excited or obsessed with some sort of new technology that you dive in and that you do it. This is also an energy here of children. Your children, if you have any, could be going through some massive changes and transitions during this time, and you might be there to support them. You might need to be there to support them. This is also a time where you might have a new child come into your life, or a fated energy that comes in around children. I would say I don't love this energy around November of 2027. If you're somebody who's trying to have kids, I think that could prove to be problematic, but leading up to that point, I think there's a lot of energy behind that where that could potentially be a thing, whether you want it to or not, because fate is stepping in, and this is just kind of one of those things where the universe gives you what you need and not what you want, or it's maybe giving you what you want. It depends on who you are and what your situation is. I would say definitely though, there's like a karmic energy, a fated energy, a synchronistic energy around your connection with children that's going to be coming up around this time, and some changes going on with your children if you have any. And if you're not having children, everything I just said prior to that is still very applicable to you. This is the time to dive in and become obsessed with your passions. There's a new direction that your soul wants you to go in. And this is about opening up that door through connecting with your passions. For Scorpio and for Scorpio rising, the North Node is transiting your 4th house, which means new fated developments involving your home, your family, your property, real estate, your connection with your parents, your family of origin. There's definitely going to be, I think a lot of people who are Scorpio risings are going to be doing like a really deep dive into their ancestry. There could also be a need to literally move in a new direction by moving house and changing your location in some way. I would say a fated energy around a new home or a new place of living, or a big change to your current home and place of living could come up, and it could be turbulent, it could be difficult, it could be emotionally intense, but it's taking you on a journey that you need to go on in this lifetime. There's going to be less of a big focus on career and public reputation. It's more like you want to take what you've already built for yourself in the past and transition that into something that is connected with your career goals and plans, as opposed to like have all of this ambition to build something new. And this is also shifting from wanting to like be in the limelight and be recognized for, you know, all of your great talents and gifts out in the career world, or with the mark that you're making on the world, even if you're not somebody who has a career, and focusing less on that and more on the actual impact you're making, and being more generous with your work and with what it is that you're putting out there, wanting to be recognized for something that has more meaning, wanting to put something out there or do work that impacts the greater good. But there's definitely a need to there's a change that needs to happen. It's on both sides. Like there's a change that needs to happen in your career, a surrender that needs to happen, but also something new that is taking shape and breaking ground in the area of your home, family, and property. There could definitely be some big changes and upheavals involving your family or your parents, so that's something to look out for, especially as we get into that 2027 timeframe, at the end of 2027, where we have that Pluto conjunction to the North Node. There could be some emotional intensity involved, but I would say overall this is taking you where you need to go in your place of living, in your career, and that's going to reverberate out into all areas of your life. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, this is a time where you're going to be focusing a lot on community building and community development. This is a time where your networks are going to matter. This is a time where your neighborhood is going to matter. This is going to be a time where you're going to be expanding on some sort of community related project, or your relationship with your neighbors and people in your immediate environment. This is also a time where fated karmic energies can come up, and they could actually affect these people, like your neighbors, your neighborhood, people in your community, and that could in turn affect you. There could also be an energy where if you have siblings, they might be going through major transitions, and that could be something that you're experiencing through your connection with them, but not necessarily directly. There's definitely a lot of fated karmic energy around travel. I would say it would be a really great time over the next 18 months to revisit a place that has special karmic, fated, or just emotional significance, but not for the sake of like showing. This is not going on a vacation to be like, look how luxurious and great my vacation is and I'm going to put it all over Instagram. This is about going somewhere because there's a deeper meaning and a deeper connection behind it. This is about going somewhere because it's a place your soul needs to revisit and that your soul has a connection to. This is also about taking your wisdom and your experience from the past and translating that into something that's more bite-sized, and maybe even teaching it or starting a blog or starting a podcast, or there's something here where you're sharing or conveying information in a new way and you've never done it before, and you might stumble, you might have some hiccups here and there, but it's something that your soul really wants you to do. And then for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, the North and South nodes for you, Capricorn, are transiting your 2nd and 8th house, which means major changes and transitions when it comes to your financial situation. There's definitely something here where the way that you go about saving, spending, or even earning income is going to change in a big way. I've seen with a lot of people, especially because you have Jupiter and Pluto in the mix, big shifts in fortune where you could have like an overnight success story. You could have a lot of money that comes in all at once. You could have this extreme shift in your wealth. And I would say for the most part, this could be in a good direction so long as you are focusing on the right things. It's going to be almost like you're obsessed with this energy around creating, saving resources, budgeting, around like a big purchase or something that you're saving up for. Like there's an obsession here and this need to be very meticulous and really dive all in a new way when it comes to dealing with your budget and your spending and your money and your possessions. But there's also money coming in. Like I think this is a time where money can come in for you, and it's like some of it's coming in from the outside and you're having to funnel that into either an investment or a purchase or like figure out what to do with it. And that's going to be a big thing for Capricorns as well. But you can't be just hoarding money for the sake of hoarding money. This needs to be something for you in particular that has a greater purpose, or you're doing it for something that's bigger than you and your own kind of like self-serving needs, right? This is about something bigger and more expansive than that. Then for Aquarius and Aquarius rising. Aquarius, you are one of the signs, of course, that's being hit the most by this because the North Node is in Aquarius. So this is all about you. Your life is going to be turned upside down in the next 18 months, and that is not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't mean that it feels like light and fluffy and, you know, beautiful in the moment. Change can always be a little bit stressful, even when it's good change. And I would say that for the most part, for you Aquarius, it's going to be good change. You are going to be coming into alignment with your true values, your true needs, wants, and desires. And the North Node is going to just make you insatiable in your urge to become the person that you were meant to be in this lifetime. Your ascendant, your first house, is not just your physical body. It's not just your appearance. It's not just your persona. It's literally your major life themes. And this is where a new theme, a new chapter of your story takes hold. There could also be massive changes involving relationships, and there could be new relationships that come into your life that feel familiar, that feel fated, that feel like you already know this person, even though you obviously don't and you just met them. It could also be that there's a change or shift going on in your relationship, and that could be very positive because it's being led and directed by you and your needs and this desire to move into a different direction. For you, Aquarius, your whole life could change. I would say a lot of personal changes, a lot of changes involving potentially your health that could be positive, definitely. A lot of changes in the direction and trajectory of relationships or new relationships coming in, or old relationships that no longer serve you really being like cut out of your life in the next 18 months. That's going to be a big thing. If there's like a cycle ending in your relationships, now's the time where that's going to become apparent and they're just going to fall away. But this is going to reverberate into your career and into your living situation as well. So it's going to impact a lot of foundational aspects of your life. And then finally, last but never least, Pisces and Pisces rising. So for Pisces, this energy is happening in your 12th and in your 6th house. This is the time to turn inward. I would say a lot of Pisces people are going to be doing a deep spiritual dive, a lot of deep inner work, a lot of exploration of consciousness, a lot of actual direct spiritual exploration with you actually not just studying, although that will be a part of it. I think you're going to be studying and obsessing over things behind closed doors, especially things that are maybe different, unusual, taboo, different forms of spirituality, scientific connections to the spiritual, and that type of thing through exploration of metaphysics and, you know, other types of scientific means of explaining the unexplainable. But definitely this is the time to make sure that you are pulling yourself out of the daily grind so you can do that deep dive to figure out who you are, do that soul searching, figure out what all of this is and what your connection to it actually is, to explore altered states of consciousness, to explore other realms, other realities, by whatever means comes up for you very naturally and very synchronistically. The South Node is transiting your 6th house, not the worst thing. I would say that there could be old energy from the past that could come up, that could be impacting your health, that you have to work through, work on, navigate in some way. Definitely changes involving your work. The need to let go of some sort of day-to-day routine involving your work or your health in order to make space to take that time away, because this is more about, it's not like active rest, it's more like you are pulling yourself out of the world because you need to do a deep dive into something. There could be fated karmic synchronistic energies coming up involving animals or pets, old pets in your life, but even new ones coming in that it feels like, oh, this is natural. This is someone who's supposed to be with me. This is an animal I'm supposed to take care of or connect with in some way, because you are, and because you might know them already. Like, this is a contract that your soul has to connect with this being for whatever reason, and that's going to come up and that's going to feel really good. There's also an energy here of turbulence, or the need to deal with other people that you employ, either as a boss or a manager, or even just in your day-to-day life, people that help you around the house, people that you hire to change your tires, whatever it is, to deal with them in a more generous and more heartfelt and more authentic way. And that's not to say that you're treating, you know, people that you're paying for stuff like garbage. It's just that you're going to form a different connection to those that are showing up in service of you, and you're going to be forming a new connection with your ability to show up in service of other people, where you're going to be helping people because there's a bigger cause behind it, or there's a bigger reason for it, or just for the sake of sharing your talents and gifts with others in a way that is of service to them. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was a big one. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. If you like this video, like it, subscribe to my channel. Make sure you share this video with a friend who you feel like could benefit from the information I shared with you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.